Hello, good afternoon, everyone. And for those who are watching us from a different time zone, good morning or good evening, wherever you are. Same with those who will be watching us on a replay. So, for those who are new in this platform or have seen me for the first time, my name is Marilyn. I'm the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited or CTS, and we are passionate about helping leaders and organizations who are continuous learners and action takers to transform and thrive in all aspects by co creating, contextualizing, and customizing programs with our world class resources. We have served over 3,000 leaders from over 30 countries in different industries, including Petronas, Sony Mobile, PruLife UK, Ayala Group, Tencent, Jollibee Foods Corporation, Legato Healthcare, and Shell, to name a few. And the reason why we are organizing several interventions, including this interview, is to help leaders who don't know how to stay relevant and adapt to the next normal, those who find it stressful to lead and ensure performance of a hybrid team, and for those who are actually afraid that they can't keep their team or their business. So, to be able to stay relevant and continue to lead more effectively in any situation, join us in these interventions. And today, it's my great pleasure to introduce our leader, Andrea Edwards. She's a certified speaking professional, the digital con- conversationalist. So she's also globally award-winning B2B communication professional who works with the world's largest companies on the transformation needed within to maximize business growth in our digital future. A change agent, provocateur, author, passionate communicator, and social leader. Andrea is all about helping business understand how they can empower employees to delight customers, grow personal career opportunities, and build brand success. Andrea's book, Uncommon Courage, is a deep reflection on life, plus an invitation to courage so we can tackle the biggest issues the world is facing together. Her first book, 18 Steps to an All Star LinkedIn Profile, is on two book authority listings as the 100 best LinkedIn books of all time and 22 best new LinkedIn ebooks to read in 2021 and 2022. And without so much further ado, I'd like to invite and bring in Andrea. Hello, Andrea.
Hi, Marilyn. Thank you so much for asking me to be part of your show. I really appreciate it. I think you're doing an amazing job here.
Thank you so much. And just to let our audience know how did we actually come up in this platform today is that of course I've known you, I've been following you, and I've been connected with you on social media, and we really get to know each other more through APSS. The recent program that I have actually attended, you're one of the key trainer and speaker for that program. So thank you so much for taking time to have this interview with me. I have learned so much from you from the one-on-one call that we recently have, and I'm glad to bring it online today.
Oh, thanks, darling. You're very sweet. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, most welcome. And of course, we would like to our audience to get as much as possible from you. And I'm also taking notes of the insights that you're gonna share today. And also, we would like to invite our audience that this is not just a conversation between me and Andrea. Join us in this conversation. Let us know if you have any questions or what's your aha moments or question or your takeaways from the questions or from the answers that Andrea will share with me today. So to start with, please share with us your leadership experiences, and if you have a favorite like leadership influencer or a leadership style that you use, whether it's in your family or in your corporate world. Uh, Please do let us know.
Well, when it comes to leadership experiences, I've got a pretty wide range. So the first job I had out of university, I joined the
Mhm.
army as a musician, and even as a musician, you still have to do the first 3 months of basic training, and that's the leadership style of do as you're told and don't question anything. And that was an incredibly interesting experience being in that environment with those people. And then the first job I got after the army, I was asked to be head of communications for an aerospace company in Australia at the age of 23. And it was this
Wow.
man called Richard Santos who hired me into the job. And it took me a few months to realize what a huge responsibility he'd given me. And I went up to him and I said to him, why the hell did you give me this job? It's such a big job. And he goes, because I knew you could do it. And that was one of those little moments, those little exchanges you have in life that just I've taken it on board ever since, and I hire for character, not for skills, because I can teach anyone in my field the skills, but I can't teach people to have the character and the personality and the courage and the guts to go out there and be really brave. Another person who really stood out, and I want to talk about people that I personally know. There's many leaders around the world that we all admire, but we don't know them personally, so
Mhm.
you can never really know. But another one is Stanimira Kaliva. She was a
Mhm.
vice president at Microsoft when I worked at Microsoft, and she became a great friend. She is a great friend, and I adore her. But what I really took away from her was loyalty. Um, she was an unbelievable communicator. She was responsible for the partners for Microsoft across Asia, and I used to watch her work. And the people that she worked with, they believed in her, they believed her message, and they really rallied around her. And I thought she was a really amazing influence. And then broader influences, so I'm paying attention to a lot of big issues that are going on in the world. So I'm looking for people who can talk to the issues in a way that is intelligent, and also not divisive. I'm always looking for people who can communicate complicated issues in an undivisive way. And as we know, the world's very divided at the moment, so they're rare. Someone like George Monbiot, who's a columnist with The Guardian, and he's written the book Regenesis.
Mhm.
But also, right across social media, I'm always looking for people who can talk about energy, the climate emergency, the multiple planetary crises that we
Mhm.
face, global economics, politics, the Ukraine war. So all the different subjects that I'm following, I'm finding clusters of experts with different opinions, because I don't want to just hear one line of thought. I want to hear different lines of thought so I can bring it all together and make sense of it. So I suppose does that answer that one?
Wow, thank you so much for sharing with us your experience as well as some of the leaders that um, really help you to be where you are or who you are today, right? Um,
Yeah.
and you're so lucky that you were able to work with some of the best leaders in some of the biggest companies as well, that you have mentioned. And what I really like about what you've shared is within that experience that you had, you started early as a leader as well, but you've shared this important concept of hiring for character and not for
Mm,
skills, and also learning about loyalty from from the experience you had in your past experience or corporate work, right? And you've mentioned, I hope I've spelled it correctly, George Monbiot, and of course other leaders on social media like what you've mentioned. And again, I believe it's important to learn from different people with different characters, background, and also culture, right? Because
yeah.
that's how you actually learn more. And again, you've highlighted around your interest on energy and global economic as well. So I'm super excited to know more about your involvement on this.
Mm,
And like why are you actually talking so much about this space as well? And before I proceed to the next question, I just want to say hi to Mohammed. Thank you for joining us live on LinkedIn. And
mm.
for the rest who's joining us live, feel free to, share your insights with us as well. And so, my next question, then, I mean, based on the experience and what you have shared, how would you define leadership then? What is
Yeah.
leadership to
Uh,
you?
It's a really great question, and I've listened to a few of your interviews just to hear what people had to say. But for me, leadership is, I mean, it's very rare, but it's two things. It's being both service minded and being inspirational.
Mm-hmm.
So you serve your team, but you also serve your customers, partners, whoever your audience is, but you serve them, and you're there to improve their lives in some form or another, whether it's, if you're a consultant or you're selling them a product. But then on the other side, it's inspiring them. I think a lot of people are really struggling with confidence in their jobs at the moment. We're seeing people all over the region losing their jobs. In Singapore, we saw, Twitter employees marched out, and a lot of people are posting on social media that they've lost their jobs. Really good people, right? So they're in a tough spot, and if they were with the right leader who would have taken them through that journey versus the wrong leader, where they just feel abandoned and devastated, and they've got to overcome this feeling of just being basically cast aside, because no one ever feels good when they lose a job. But
Mm-hmm.
trust is the other really big thing for me. And
Right.
in Asia in particular, trust is so important. Earning the trust of your team. It's one of the first lessons I learned. If they didn't trust me, I was never going to be successful. But trust
Mm-hmm.
has to go both ways. They have to trust you, but you have to trust them. And then
Mm-hmm.
you need to get out of their way if that's the sort of people that they are. I think you got to know your team. You got to know what they need versus having a one size all fits approach to leadership,
Mm-hmm.
because different people need different things. I've had so many bosses get it wrong with me, and
Mm-hmm.
I talked to them afterwards. I said, "That's not what I need." They try and do something to congratulate me for a success, but it was a public sort of thing, and I'm like, I don't need that. That's not what I need.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me I'm doing a good job, and I'll be happy with that. So really know your team and lead them how they want to be led. And I think the other thing is, it's all right not to have all the answers. It's good to be humble. Hire a team of people that can help you with all the answers,
Mm-hmm.
and then listen to them, of course. So don't be arrogant. Don't let ego lead, and
Mm-hmm.
be humble and build a team. It's a family. I learned that seeing it in the Philippines. Some of the best examples of leadership I've ever seen were in the Philippines, where this family mentality within business, it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think they're the roundabout ways that I think about leadership.
Thank you. I really love how you've actually defined leadership as, being of service and inspiration to others, whether it's your employees or your customers. At the end of the day, I would say that, leadership, like what you've mentioned, is really so much about building relationship through
Yeah.
trust. And yeah, I mean, part of that trust is really being humble, being empathetic, knowing how to communicate. I mean, that's your
Uh,
specialization, to communicate. And part of that communication is knowing how to listen to others as well, right? Because that's
mhm.
where we actually learn as well.
Yep.
Yeah. And I just wanted to thank again Mohammed for, sharing with us that he's looking forward to hearing more from you, and from us, from this conversation, especially about leadership. So thank you for joining us today again. And for those others who are listening, feel free to, join us in this conversation or share your questions as well. And so, having said that, based on your experience, based on what you believe leadership is, I've also made mention earlier in my introduction about the next normal. So, I'm just curious to know, in your case, how would you define or describe the next normal, if it even like does exist for you?
Oh yeah, the next normal. One, there's no normal. I actually think the majority of people are going to be absolutely blown away by what's next, and I think it's going to have a massive impact on mental health around the world for years, even decades to come. But on top of that, many people are going to be literally in the eye of the storm in the coming years and decades, and their focus is going to be on survivability, not on the next normal. So, and we've seen a lot of that already happening in the last few years. But 2022 was definitely a year of extreme events, like we saw in Pakistan, right? So, and just recently in California with the storm after storm after storm, and the hottest year on record, and all that sort of stuff. But just last week, the World Economic Forum released a report that they were talking about we're going to be facing in the next couple of years, in the next decade, in the near future, um,
Mm-hmm.
the time of the polycrisis. And this is multiple crises, so economic, geopolitical, climate, biodiversity loss, collapse, all that sort of stuff. So I actually, when I sort of think forward for the next 10 years, I think we've really got to have our minds focused on the fact that we are in an age of disruption,
Mm-hmm.
contraction, and potentially collapse. So I
Mm-hmm.
know it's not a very nice thing to hear, but this is all the signs that we're seeing. So I'll just give you one example. Just last week, I think it was, a UK report came out on the banks in the UK and
Mm-hmm.
their exposure to the fossil fuel industry. And this is an industry that's going to massively contract. There's no
Mm-hmm.
question about it, and it will see billions in stranded assets. So this means that the banks are exposed to billions of dollars in loss, and it's going to be worse than what we saw in 2008. And there are many examples of this around the world. I just saw another report today that US banks are starting to look at their financial risks. So, where the economic fallout that we're looking at is going to be tremendous, and it's going to grow and grow and grow. And there's not a consistent message in the media around this, but if you just look at all of the stories together and link it all together, it's there. So on the other side, we're so close to so many tipping points in the environment,
Mm-hmm.
and some of these tipping points are going to set off global catastrophes, and they're going to impact thousands, if not millions of people. So we've
Mm-hmm.
seen that last year, sorry, but we're going to be seeing it more. And the thing that people don't seem to understand, that this is all expected to happen in the next few years, not by 2100. So I'm concerned about people's lack of preparedness in their mind about what's actually coming. So one of the big shifts that's going to happen this year is we're moving from La Nina, which is cooler weather patterns, which we're now in the third year of, which is unusual, to El Nino.
Mm-hmm.
And the scientists are expecting by October, the last quarter of this year, that we're going to
Mm-hmm.
see extreme temperatures that we've never seen on Earth before. So they're
Mm-hmm.
talking about a zero 0.5 increase in global warming. So we're at 1.2 now, that's 1.7. Now, of course, this isn't permanently embedded, but we're going to start to experience these really extreme weather, sorry. And nobody's, from what I'm seeing, very, very few countries, I think Singapore is probably one of them, is ready
Mm-hmm.
for this, and we don't seem to want to face up to what's coming, and our governments aren't speaking the language of adaptation yet. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you see all the glacial melting that's been happening this year in the last 12 months, 100% higher rates of glacial melt in Greenland. And 2022 was an El Nino year and it's still warmer.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, a La Nina year and it's still warmer. So, yeah, I'm pretty nervous about what's coming in the future. And, this switch is going to be a significant wake up call if we haven't woken up already. Ready. So, if you want to get ready for the next normal, I would suggest that we really need to invest our time in understanding with what is happening and what it means to us personally, to our businesses, to our countries, and to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the conversation that's going on around the world on social media and in person, it's still
Mm-hmm.
very much a business as usual sort of message. And I think people think we'll just keep chugging along. We'll have a couple of bumps. It might be bad for a couple of years, and then we'll get back to growth. And that reality is not on any horizon that I'm seeing. So I think the next normal is going to be intense,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to come to terms with it, and we need to stop fighting about it. We need to stop politicizing it, and we need to say, all right, what do we need to do? And then we need to get to work and get it done. So I know it's not a positive message, but I think, we're beyond time that we have to face up to it. We just
Exactly.
have to.
Yes, yes. And I really appreciate that you brought up all these uh, extreme events or the polycrisis, disruptions, collapse, and even the climate change that are happening right now. Because I mean, despite that most people know about it or are kind of aware about it, right? Um, but sometimes as you said, you've been always hearing around business as usual, right? And it's good to be reminded that we are in the phase where there's more challenges to come, and how are we gonna face it, right? Because what we do today is very important, and and that's the reason why I've been doing this as well. It's to remind people, to remind leaders that they need to step up and do something about it. And the good thing is that it's not really so much about the government, the C levels or whatnot. It's really about every one of us working together, really, right? To be able to address all these challenges that we are facing now and we're gonna face in the future, right? And
Yeah.
definitely it's really about time for people to really work together, and again, like what you mentioned, not really like so much of making it as politics or whatnot, because it really matters to everyone. There's no such thing as we need to save the earth. The earth doesn't need to be saved to be exact, because it grows, it thrives on its own. It's us who needs to be saved,
Yep.
right? and
What we
and
what we've done is we've taken away the
mhm,
stability on which our lives are based,
mhm,
and without
mhm,
stability, we have no certainty, and
mhm,
that's the challenge. And you mentioned that it's not just leaders and politicians that need to do it. Actually, the only way that we can really do this is if those leaders and politicians step up and make the systemic change that is required. But
ex-
we
mhm.
can't sit around waiting for that to happen. We have to step into this ourselves in any way we can, whether it's local community action, and community action is going to be critical. Coming together as a community, planting gardens,
Mhm,
protecting our futures, making sure our homes can cope with this higher
mhm,
heat, because I'm terribly worried, especially in the developing world, and both of us have experienced this. People are living in shacks with tin roofs. Then they're
mhm,
going to cook inside their homes when the wet bulb temperatures get too high. So, what are we going to do to help those people get into a position where they can actually survive this extreme heat? So there's so much to do. It's a huge, complicated issue, and what
mhm.
we've got to do is focus on what's the part that I can play. So my part, I'm out
Right.
there sharing the message, trying to educate people, trying to make people aware. Not People don't like my message, and they don't want to hear it. They don't. Why would you want to hear it? I understand, but it doesn't mean that we don't share it, right? So work out what your part is as a leader, and if you're in a business, you've got to sort of
Mhm.
really think about what your business is contributing to the future of humanity
Then.
and biodiversity on this planet, right?
Mm-hmm. True, true. And again, that's the beauty of also doing business, because you can actually do a lot of things to impact the world, not only the team, not only your business, but also, again, like what you've said, the environment, the biodiversity around you, right? Because
Yeah,
again, like gone are the days when it's only just about profitability. You have to care for the people, for the planet as well, as you go along with your business, right? And
yeah,
I was actually like looking at this quote by Warren Buffett, that someone sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree long time ago.
yeah,
And you know um again, it's not, yes, the government, the leaders needs to step up to do something about it, but we can, as like as a person, as an individual, we can always like do our part to be able to contribute and to be able to help around this, not only about awareness but also really taking action as well on how can we do to make, you know our home a better place to live in, right?
yeah.
So thank you for that reminder. And um my next question is really so much more around like the problems that most leaders do face or normally face, whether it's in corporate or as entrepreneurs, right? So
Yep.
from your take, being a leader as well in both corporate and now working with corporate leaders as well, what would you say would be the top three problems for them?
All right. So the first one is how we think. And
Mhm,
I sort of classify it. We have two types of thinkers. We have the experts who really go deep and they really know what they're talking about. And
mhm,
then we have the big picture thinkers. And they're the ones that can bring all the different pieces together and make sense of the biggest story.
mhm,
And I am a big picture thinker. It's how I make sense of the world. I've always been that way. And I know, and it's something I haven't been comfortable saying because it sounds egotistical, but it's not. It's just the
Mm-hmm.
way I think. So anytime I've had an opportunity to work with a leader who's a big picture thinker is absolutely amazing for me, because what
Mm-hmm.
we do is we get to fill in the gaps for each other, because we're you know, because you can never grasp it all, right? But you need the expertise around you to sort of go deeper. So one of the things with being a big picture thinker is a lot of leaders who are not big picture thinkers are intimidated by it. And just
Mm-hmm.
recently in publications like Harvard Business Review, they're starting to talk more about embracing big picture thinkers, and I think that's going to be a critical piece. You need your experts, but you also need the people that can bring it all together. And
Mm-hmm.
don't be scared of those people, because we really need them, because they're the ones that are going out saying, making sense of all of this different information that's coming at us across the world. So the other issue that I see a lot, and which I cover extensively in my book Uncommon Courage, is
Mm-hmm.
self-awareness. Just that's such a big one. So many people, they don't know themselves. They don't know what motivates themselves. They don't know what their values are. They don't really know who they are in the world. They're operating almost outside of their own body, and it's very difficult to lead a team if you don't have strong self-awareness. So that's
Mm-hmm.
something that's very, very important. How can you understand how other people are feeling if you don't know yourself? And when you look around the world, people are tired, they're exhausted, they're done in, they're so sick of change. I'm sorry, if you're sick of change, it's going to keep coming at you. But people are also burnt out, they're in despair, eco anxiety, whatever the reasons are, right? So if you're not in tune with what's going on, and the way I do it is I'm just constantly paying attention to the global conversations on social
Mm-hmm.
media, as well as in conversations that I have in person. But yeah, self-awareness is a big one. And yeah, just understand that these times are not normal, that
Mm-hmm.
we will never have normal, whatever that means again. So really asking yourself, how can you lead in this time? How can you be a person that matters in this time? How can you be a person that creates change, or drives business success, but maybe by different definitions of what success is? So um, but we've got to think outside of what it was before, and we've got to start applying it, like with what all the scientists are telling us is coming. How do we do that within the context of that? And I think we need to be spending a lot of time on that. And obviously one of the biggest strengths that we're going to need in the future is resilience.
True.
We're going to have to toughen up, we're going to have to be courageous.
I really appreciate you summarizing that for us, and I totally agree with you on that. Despite that, I had this is my 101st interview, and a lot of people would actually like cover most of these as well, right? And again, everything starts with the mindset, with the self-awareness, because
Mm,
every actions, behaviors, and things that we do, it starts with ourselves, with how we work on ourselves, and how we know ourselves, and how we love ourselves.
yeah,
And that's where it all starts. And again, like, everybody have different perspectives, as you said. Like, it's a challenge that how we think, or how different we think from others, um, is
yeah,
how can we leverage around it, right? And again, like, with how you actually describe, again, you mentioned, like, it's not a very positive, and not everyone wanted to hear, like, the new normal, or the next normal, or if there's even a normal nowadays.
mm,
So how are we actually addressing that? How can we create change? How can we be more resilient, given that situation, right?
yeah,
So again, it's a great reminder for everyone to pay attention to, not only on themselves, but also to the things and the people that are, and the environment that are around them, right? So it's
yeah.
really so much about awareness, not only of self, but also of others as well, I would say. And so
Yeah,
that.
I just quickly, just this is a time for deep, deep, deep self-reflection. Really going inside and
Mhm.
asking yourself some hard questions. Working out what your values are, what's important to you, but also look at the knowledge that's in you and ask yourself, is it yours or was it put there by somebody else or something else? Whether it's church, politics, sort of, national culture, whatever it is. We get so many families, we get so many inputs from all our lives from the minute we're born. And I think it's really important to start looking within and asking yourself, do I believe this? And if you do, it's great. But if you don't, pull it out, get rid of it, and keep going deeper. And it's a hard process to do, but I think for the years that we've got coming up ahead, the work that we do within on ourselves, I think will be the most important work we do, because when you can get yourself to a
Mhm.
place of peace and contentment within yourself, you can then be in a position to go out there and be of service to the world. So I would encourage the self-reflection.
Yeah, I just actually recently wrote a blog around self-reflection because I believe it's important. And I mean, like, now that we're just, starting the year 2023, everyone is really like working on their resolutions, their goals. And again, self-reflection is not really a once a year thing. It's really something, the more we actually do it, the more regular we do it, the more we can actually like I would say anchor and really like work on how we can make things better in the future, because that's when we ask ourselves some of the best questions we should.
Yeah,
Right, in like what happened in the last few years, and what do I want, and how can I actually get from the past to my present and to the future generation, right?
yeah.
So so
Mm.
that's the importance of really reflecting on a regular basis, right? And for us to really like focus on a lot of inner work, as you've mentioned as well. And obviously we will not leave them with all these top three problems without sharing with them the important leadership capabilities or skills that they must have in order to um, continue to lead effectively in this next normal. So if you were to like identify a few of them, what would it be?
All right. So the obvious one for me is always knowledge. It's actually knowing and learning and investing your time in understanding what's going on. So I worked in the technology industry for more than 20 years.
Mhm.
And one of the biggest weaknesses I always saw in the technology industry was how internally it was focused.
Mhm.
And you saw
Mhm.
many companies failing and disappearing overnight because they were so internally focused, they weren't paying attention to what was going on outside in the world. They weren't paying
Mhm.
attention to their customers, their partners, their employees, and or their future potential customers, right? So they weren't in tune with where the customer was, and so they
Mhm.
failed. And a lot of businesses do that. And if you can't sit outside and look at the bigger picture, and social media is the greatest gift we've ever been given, to be aware of what's going on in the greater world. And of course, I'm fully aware of all the things that are bad about social media, but
Mhm.
I focus on the positive gift to humanity that it is. And I'm a big believer in being social leaders and having a voice and putting your point of view out there.
Mhm.
Because when you do that, it forces you to engage in the world outside versus
Mhm.
being internally focused. So that's a really big one. And like I said earlier, you really need to tap into your humanity and to your
Mhm.
resilience. That's going to be a really critical thing. We need to be so strong in the years ahead, and we also need to be weak in the years ahead and know that we can be weak in the years ahead.
Mhm.
We've all been tested in the last few years, and a lot of people have not come back from that, and they want it to be over. But I think what we've got ahead of us is more ruthless. It's going to be even more draining, and we need to get ready and arm ourselves with the skills that we need to be able to cope with the years that are coming up. And it's going to be hard. And I think we need to be honest about it. We can pretend it's all roses, but it's not. And
Mhm.
we've got to face up to the facts and then do whatever we can to make it not as bad as it could be. And we're not doing that yet. I was listening to the head of Davos saying, it's all about growth and it's all about focusing on jobs, and
Mhm.
it's like, oh, it can't. We have to change our language now, and the leaders have to change their language, because growth is what has gotten us to this point. So when so I definitely recommend everyone understand the term degrowth. And a lot of people are very anti the concept of degrowth, but go and look into it, study it, understand it, read about it, because
Mhm.
that's the actual direction that we should be really thinking about going in.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for that. I actually would like to understand more what does that degrowth mean. To be exact, it's the first time I have
Yeah.
actually come across this degrowth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
So,
our whole global economy is measured on growth. So if we keep growing, we're going to double in the, by 2050, right? If we
mhm,
double, if we continue as we are and we double by 2050, we're going to have, let's look at where we are today from an
mhm,
emissions perspective. What does that
mhm,
look like doubled in 2050, right? So we obviously
mhm,
cannot continue going the way we're going. So we need to be looking at
mhm,
strategies where, I was reading a book talking about Japan. Japan
mhm,
the global the way Japan's been talked about for a long time has been as a failed economy, but this perspective was talking about Japan changed its economy to grow within the constraints of the environment. So we need to grow within the constraints of what is physically possible for Earth to deliver, and we're not. We're in overshoot, right? So how do we not be in overshoot? And that's the question. So degrowth is about addressing that very, very
oh.
simply. It's a much more complicated topic, obviously.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for helping me understand that better. And again, as you've mentioned, some of the important capabilities or leadership skills that they must know is, of course, working on their knowledge. Continuous learning is important, and part of that is being in tune more with themselves and, of course, the customers that they serve. And then tapping into, of course, humanity and resilience. We will need that more than ever, like what you've said. And the degrowth, where we have to work on how are we actually like leaving, or like working on what we have, right? And working as well on improving the economy, um as we go along, those challenges as well. So I my next question then is, what do you believe is the role of learning, leadership, and transformation in order to thrive in this next normal? I'm not sure if you find it very like a huge question. Someone actually mentioned that in the last time I asked this. So I said like maybe it's really like more of an invitation to, like, if you were to put together the conversation that we're having so far in two sentences, perhaps, what would it be? I mean, around this learning, leadership, and transformation.
Look, for me, the whole learning side of things is absolutely everything. So one of the things that we see is images of dying industries and the people who are impacted. So sorry, it's not going to be
Mhm,
two sentences, but you'll see typically men sitting around in a room and they're all sort of complaining about the fact that they've lost their
mhm,
jobs, and it's logging, coal miners, that sort of thing. And fair enough, their life has become miserable. An entire community is built around a business, and overnight it's gone. So it's devastating,
mhm,
right? But
mhm,
well, so first of all, we need to be looking at those sort of businesses that need to go, and we need to be looking at how do we get those people who are in those industries ready for the future,
mhm,
and that just we just keep seeming to fail. It's just
mhm,
like an industry is dumped and the people are dumped, and of course, a lot of the extreme sort of voting and politicians that we're seeing are feeding into that sort of mindset. But we need to be thinking, how can we help these people to take the next step into what is in the future versus what is part of the past. So I think we all need to be looking at whatever role that we've got. We're all seeing the AI chatbot, all that stuff that's going on social media, which I haven't spent enough time trying to understand. But with robotics and automation, there's a lot of jobs that are going to go away, white collar and blue collar. And
mhm,
you need to ask yourself, is it your job? And if it is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to wait till it happens? Are you going to be one of those people sitting in a room complaining because you lost your job? Or are you going to be proactive and go out and work out what you need to learn today to give yourself a chance for an active role in the future? Now, look, with automation and robotics, a lot of jobs are going to go away, and those companies who are going to be making as much, if not more, profits well, we need to be looking at them to put a percentage, a large percentage of those profits back into the community. We need universal basic income. This is big, big transformational stuff that's happening, but we need to be honest about, where it's all going for ourselves. And also, we need to start pushing for it, and the
Mm-hmm.
economic transformation that's needed to happen over the last 30 years, gradually hasn't happened. So now we're at a point where it has to happen quickly. So it's going to be hard, but we do today, we need to be looking at what are the green jobs that are coming out, and the growth in green jobs is exponential,
Mm-hmm.
or the sustainability expertise that we need. And we need to be looking at how can I learn so I can get ready for this next stage for humanity. So that's the most important thing. Don't wait for it to crash and leave you struggling. Work out how you can take an active role in your future. And if you're working in an industry that's going to be gone, admit it, and then start looking at the skills that you need, as well as pushing for a different economic model for the future. So I think we've got to do a couple of different things there. Does that make sense?
Definitely, yes. I mean, what I'm getting, if I were to put it in one sentence, the amazing things that you have shared, this is what I got a summary. That learning is everything. Learning is important, and the purpose of learning is really to be ready for the future, right?
Yeah,
Whether I mean, it's not really so much of how we failed, why we failed, and all those stuff in the past, but it's really what can we do better today, and
yeah,
how can we be ready for the future, right? And that's all about leadership, learning, and transportation. I mean transformation, if I have to say that, right?
yeah,
So thank you so much for at least elaborating that for us, and really sharing with us how important, how relevant, and how we have to pay attention on learning, and preparing for the things and that are yet to come, right? Or that we already have clues,
yeah,
like what you've mentioned, it's already here, right?
yeah.
And it's really about what we can do now, what we can do today, and what else we can do for our future, right? So thank you for that, and I'd like to say thank you, Rosalinda Ramos, for the like. um, yeah, and so that leads me to my last two questions. These are very open questions, and I would normally say my Miss Universe questions. So I'm curious to know how will you, or where are you coming from, and how are you actually coming up with the answers for these two questions. So if you have a magic wand and can use it, what will you do with it?
I thought I think this is such an amazing question because there's so many paths that I could have taken. But the one the one thing that I know is that if we
Mm-hmm,
have any chance as a global society
mm-hmm,
to come together and succeed,
mm-hmm,
is that we need to raise global consciousness, human consciousness, right? And a lot of people really struggle with that term, that phrase. It's too woo-woo for them. But all throughout history, and by the way, if you're not into history, get into history. There's so many lessons in our history, but all throughout history, um, we have raised human consciousness, and it's usually after extreme events like wars, um, calamities, whatever's happened. But we need to raise the consciousness of humanity to be more compassionate.
mm-hmm,
The majority of people who are going to be the worst impacted are not responsible for what happened. And right now, I'm looking around the world, and there's borders going up, there's walls going up, and that's if I'm lucky enough to be behind one of those walls and survive with my family, am I going to feel good about myself? No, I'm not. So I want to do whatever I can for as long as I can for the greater world, and I invite other people to join with me. But we need to have really big, deep, beautiful hearts and compassion for all of humanity, and work out how we can do this because
mm-hmm,
everyone's going to have to eventually migrate up to, they're calling them the Arctic cities, right? How do we do that? How do we get ready for it? What do we need to do today? What do we need to build? And it's not walls, it's not walls. It's we can take on more people in smaller spaces, but we've just got to work out how to do it in a way where we can all thrive, you know. So human consciousness, that's definitely what I think we need to be focusing on. I actually
Wow,
think
that's
it's our only, I actually think it's our only hope.
yeah, I mean, that's really beautiful because I mean, we all know that love is the most powerful, one of the most powerful energy, and being compassionate is for free
Yeah,
as well. So why not, right? And again, it's good to hear that. I mean, you don't normally hear this message of having global human consciousness, but I that's something that I really appreciate with this kind of conversations, and also the recent learnings and work that I have been doing. I've been really hearing so much things that are like that really matters now, right? More than
yeah,
anything, compassion, love, global human consciousness. And I think we're already in a phase where we're ready to actually to evolve and to be able to work together and um, improve that consciousness or
yeah.
human consciousness, right? I've heard that several times while watching some videos. I'm not sure if you've heard of Gene Keys before, and it's very interesting as well to hear this global human consciousness that you've mentioned, because whether you like it or not, right? Like there's always a collective thing going on um around us, between us. We are all one,
Yeah,
so might as well, like, um work together to be able, I mean, like what you've said, to come together and to in order to succeed, right? So I really
yeah.
appreciate that. And I mean, even I would say that even without the magic wand, with all the work that you do, the podcast, the messages, the social media posts, and even these kind of conversations that that you accommodate, that you actually serve others with, that actually encourages and reminds people how important this is. So even without the magic wand, you're already like sharing that message to the world. So thank you so much for that work. And that leads me to my last question. If you were to ask yourself a question that you can best answer, what would it be? And since you can best answer it, please do answer that for us as well.
You know, when I looked at this question, I thought I could answer it in different ways, but the question that I ask myself every single day
Mm-hmm.
is, how can I do this better? How can I communicate this message in a way that's going to reach more people, change minds, open hearts? And that's what I'm constantly doing. I'm sharing something incredibly difficult that people don't want to hear. And as the sharer of the message, and there's many people like me around the world, as the sharer of the message, it's really hard, because when people don't want to hear it, they're not interacting with it. So you kind of feel like it's not being heard, right? And then you're
Mm-hmm.
constantly always second guessing yourself. And then you catch up with people and they say, oh no, I'm listening to, watching everything you're doing. And I'm like, can you just interact with it sometimes so I know that, rather than, you know, all these anonymous people. So, you know, that's the question I'm always asking. How can I do it in a different way? So I'm competing with shiny things. I'm competing with fluff. I'm competing with angry politicians who are so divisive that they're not actually serving their constituents, to celebrity nonsense that I just couldn't care less about, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm competing with a lot of noise in the world, you know, and, you know, one of my
True.
chapters in my careers was content marketing. So how do I get my message out in a better way? How do I get it out in a more powerful way? But the other thing is, how do I take care of my energy levels so that I can keep going? Because the very first one of these you did was with the CEO of Accenture, and he was talking about how people sort of they're like pushing a stone up a hill, and eventually it gets enough momentum that it takes off. So I've been in the pushing the stone up a hill for, well, more than a decade, and it costs. And so, to all the people out there that you know who are out there sharing a hard message but an important message, please make sure you're supporting them. Give them the energy, because that's what it gives them. People talk about dopamine boosts from getting a like. It's people who are sharing this message aren't looking for a dopamine boost. We're looking for an energy source to help us keep believing that we should keep going and that it's not a lost cause. So I suppose a different way of answering that question, but yeah, that's the question I'm asking. I encourage everyone, always challenge yourself. How can you
Mm-hmm.
do it better? How can you share it in a more powerful way? But also, don't think that you have to follow the formula that everybody else is following, which is the shiny thing stuff. If you've got a real and important message that you want to get out there, you've got to keep going. Persistence and consistency. You know, I've been doing things for so many years, and that the numbers don't sort of support me
Mm-hmm.
continuing, but I'm not doing it for the numbers. I'm doing it for the message. So, yeah. Is that a different way of answering that question?
Yeah, it's very interesting because I'm also I would say that's also one of the questions that would I would ask myself on a daily basis, right? Because sometimes we thought those likes or those follows and all those stuff really matters. Well, it is, because the more subscribers and the more viewers or likes you get, I mean, the more that social media is pushing your message, your interviews and all those stuff.
Hmm.
And yeah, and again, what we're doing right now is really like an uncommon courage, like
Yeah,
like your book title, right? It's really the courage to do things that are not very famous, and that's again leadership, right?
yeah,
Standing for the things, the message, and all these things that we do, right? Even if
yeah,
it's not that famous, for or even if it's not the things that people wanted to hear, right?
yeah. I always think, if you can change one person's life, it's worth doing. But every time I get really despondent that all of the effort that I'm putting in isn't having the impact I'm hoping for, because it's not about me. It's
Mm-hmm.
never about me. It's about the message, right? And
Exactly.
I just keep anchoring. You use the word anchor, and I love the fact you use that, because I always say to people, you should anchor yourself deeply in your values, so that no
Mm-hmm.
one can ever knock you off your path, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I always anchor myself back in the reality of why I'm doing it. What is my intention behind what
Exactly.
I'm doing? And
Mm-hmm.
it's not about numbers. It's not. It's about driving change, building
Mm-hmm.
awareness, so that our
Mm-hmm.
children have a hope in the future. So anchor yourself in why you're there, rather than the vanity metrics. Because I've heard C-level execs talk to me about all these numbers that they've got on LinkedIn, and they'll show them to me, and it's
Mm-hmm.
impressions, right? And they'll be like 8,000 impressions, and I know that those numbers are completely meaningless, and they just feed into the ego. And
Mm-hmm.
but if that inspires them to go out there and be a voice, then that's
Mm-hmm.
good. So be a voice. Have the courage to be a voice out there in the world. That's another
Exactly.
really
And
important thing.
true, true. And at least, we did what we can in our
Yeah.
own ways, right?
Yeah, my boys believe that the future's going to be okay because their mum's fighting for it. At some point they're going to go, all right, mum's done her best, but there hasn't been enough. But it's taken away the eco anxiety for them as teenagers, knowing that their mum is doing everything she can to fight for their future. So, I take a lot of solace just from that, just how much it gives my boys. Even though I'm a realist and I can see what's happening. I like the fact that they don't think they have to worry about it because I'm out there fighting for them. And I encourage all parents to get out there and fight for your children's futures, because they really need us to. We haven't got time for them to grow up. We really haven't. It takes generations to change through the education system, and
Exactly.
we've got to do it for them. You know.
True, true. And again, that's an inspiration, and that's why we need resilience as well
Hmm. Oh yeah.
ourselves, right? Because sometimes, like like what this CEO told me, because I it was funny because I thought I was actually just sharing my message to my coach, but apparently it was I shared that in a group of my
Yeah.
panelists in the past summit. And then when I realized that actually deleted it, but it was too late because some of them already saw it. And then the CEO actually responded to me, and he- and told me that, you are doing something beautiful. And I mean, keep going, because there are some seeds that germinates longer than others. So I
Yeah.
think that, this kind of messages, this kind of activities, podcasting, or sharing this message sometimes takes time. But yeah, we really wanted to get to that stage where, like, people are listening, people are sharing, people are viewing, people are sharing their comments, how they have been impacted with the message that we are giving into this world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's
And
just hope will
don't worry
come.
about don't worry about the haters and the dividers. Just don't worry about them. They're never going to go away. Just ignore them and just get on with it. Know why you're there. If you know why you're there, they can't knock you off track. And yeah, they have an impact.
Mhm.
And women obviously suffer more of that than
Mhm.
men do. But just get out there, believe in what you're saying, do your research, know what you're talking about, go
Mhm.
deep, be open, try not to use divisive language. And
Mhm.
we need to come together and we need to solve this. And we've got a lot of work to do. And we can do it, but this is not going to be easy, but we can do it, and we have to believe we can do it. There is always
Definitely.
hope. There is always hope.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate these messages of yours. And again, thank you so much for taking time to have this conversation with me. I really enjoyed it. I
Mhm.
wanted more, but we already have almost almost an hour of this meaningful conversation, I would say. Is there any other message that you'd like to leave our audience with before we end this interview?
Follow Marilyn. She's awesome. She's an amazing woman. She's a very inspiring leader, and she's got a lot to say. So follow her and support her.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Andrea. And again, do follow Andrea as well. She's so intelligent. She's knowledgeable, and you can learn so much from her as well. I've been also following her, um, and I've been learning so much. I mean, in less than an hour, I have like so much notes, and I have like learned so much things that are new to my ears generally. So thank you so much for all those lessons, those insights that you have shared. And it has been a meaningful conversation with you. So I thank you for your time and your generosity. And
Oh, thank
again,
you.
follow Andrea Edwards as well. And again, thank you for everyone who's watching us, and for those who are supporting us. Please give us a like, follow us on YouTube. Let me just share my YouTube link as well. And if there's anything that we can help you with around leadership, communications, feel free to reach out to us. That's my contact details. And again, thank you so much for those who are supporting us and joining us. And again, let's work together and join together in this journey to create more opportunities, to create a better world that we believe in. And remember that even the richest investors in this world would say that investing in yourself is the best investment you can ever make in your life. And so with that, we would like to thank you again. Happy New Year, everyone, and leave you with this quote that if your actions create a legacy that inspires others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are an excellent leader. Thank you so much, Andreas.
Hmm.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
everyone, and
guys.
have a good day.